everyone, and welcome to another speed paint video. For this video, I'm using Dr. P.H. Martin's Bombay India ink in the color red. Alright, so let's begin. So for this one, I am creating a character based off the color red. I was originally inspired by this concept by an artist I found when I was little, when I was a kid, on DeviantArt. Unfortunately, I don't know who the artist is now, and I cannot find their artwork, so I can't reference them in this video. So unfortunately, I apologize to you, artist. I wish I could find you, but I've lost you in the many galleries of DeviantArt now. But basically, the artist, what they did was they created magical girls or princesses according to certain colors. So they would only use, let's say for example, this one, red to color in the character. And I wanted to do the same thing. Now, many artists have done this before. Many artists have used the same concept and explored it. I think, DrawingwiffWaffles has done it on YouTube as an example of someone on YouTube already that has done it before, and you can probably check it out. I'll link them in the description below if you have never seen their artwork, but they're really great, and they also inspired me to use India ink, actually. A few years ago, I saw a couple of videos by DrawingwiffWaffles where she was using P.H. Martin's India ink. And for the longest time, I never saw myself as a painter. For the longest time, I never saw myself as someone who would be very good at painting. But after seeing her videos, I was inspired to dabble in it. I was inspired to at least try. So a few years ago, I bought a set of P.H. Martin's Bombay India ink in all of the variety of colors that they had in one set. But of course, because it's a new medium for me, I just let it sit there for a couple of years, and I actually haven't really used it. This is actually the first time I've used it for full-on illustration, so let me know what you think and in the comments below. Did I do a good job? Do you think there are places where I can improve on? If you have any advice for me, especially if you are also an artist, please, please, please share your advice. I would love to hear it. But yeah, so because it's a new medium, I am playing around with it. The one thing I know about India ink is that you can add water to it. You can dilute the intensity of the color by the amount of water you add. The only thing though that's very different from watercolors is that once it dries, it's dry. You can't pick it, you have to leave it be. So that was one of the first challenges I faced. And so during the process of this character design, I wanted to make sure I had enough skill playing around with the medium to have an understanding of how to use it for the final design. Alright, so at this point, I'll let you all enjoy the process, and I'll chime in once in a while. Alright, so this is the beginning of my favorite sketch of the entire process. Now, I think it's just funny that this is my favorite sketch because it is also the only major sketch that I used markers with. Now, I drew a little tiny one on the bottom left-hand corner with markers, but this one I used markers the most with. And I know I'm supposed to only use India ink and I'm supposed to get used to it at this point, but I need a little bit of a breather. And what I really liked about this sketch was simply kind of like how the head is tilted, the shape of the skirt, and everything. But my favorite part, which you're about to see in a bit, are the legs. Instead of drawing out the legs in the pen, I decided to just paint in the legs with the markers. And I don't usually do that, but I thought, you know what, because it's just a sketch, just go ahead and do it. And I was really happy with the shape of the legs, in contrary to the shape of the character itself. It's sad that this was not, in the end, the final design for the final picture, but I still love the way I drew this character and I drew those legs. Yay! But yeah. Alright, and so at this point I decided to draw a larger version of the character. I'm trying to finalize the specific characteristics and physicalities of this character design, and so I practiced drawing her with a heart-shaped chin, a heart-shaped forehead, and overall just roughly sketching out the rest of her attire and her look. By drawing her really largely, I also permitted myself the opportunity to practice painting one last time. And I was really happy that I did this because unlike the usual 4x6, which is what I usually use, I decided to use a 5x7 page instead. And with the 5x7, there's more surface space, and I'm not really used to that. So I try to just draw her really big, just so I can get comfortable with sketching something at that size. Once I was done with it, obviously, I felt like, you know what, I think I'm good. But I realized I didn't test my line art. So I grabbed my Stabilo pens, and I grabbed a variety of purples. And I know, blasphemy! Why is she using purple? She should be using red. I thought the color was red. That's true, but I realized in time purple tends to be a really nice complementary color for a line art for the color of red. So I thought maybe I can do the same thing traditionally. It worked a little bit, but I was not heavily inspired. You'll see at the very end of this that I, in the end, just used a red Stabilo pen, but I'm happy that I at least tried out the idea. And if you are someone who does a lot of character designs and has these levels of inspiration, this is my recommendation. Always try out all of your ideas prior to the final design. Even if it's time consuming, even if the sketches that you're using are really messy and stuff that you don't really care about, just try it out because you don't know, maybe it'll work. And so we are finally here at the final design. What I'm using right now is watercolor paper, and if you're wondering about the pencil, I'm just using a pencil. I know it came out of a special set, but I don't really know much about pencils and what's best and what's not best, so I used a pencil. That's all you're gonna know. But basically I am lightly sketching the character and what I want to see in the final design, and once I am done roughly sketching everything in, I erase it all and re-sketch everything with a harder line, and you're going to see that in a bit, but I'll let you all enjoy the process for now. right, so now I am finally painting. Because I went over the rough sketch with a much more cleaner sketch, after erasing it the third time or so, I was able to see the cleaner sketch over all of the other faded out lighter sketches. This allows me to know where I need to paint throughout the entire piece without leaving too much pencil markings on the page. Now, in this first stage of the painting process, I wanted to make sure that my base layer was a diluted, lighter version of a red. Because the ink is not a medium that you can pull up and take away, I knew that it has to be a medium that I can add on to. So starting out lighter was the best move for this process. Now I think one of the reasons why I was inspired to use India ink was because once you put down the base layer, overall the ink settles down really flatly, and I really like that. I love the flat fill. There's not brush markings, it's just ink, and it's really pretty. And I don't know if I brought this up yet, but I was inspired by DrawingwiffWaffles, and I was inspired because I saw this in her process videos, and I thought, you know what, I really want to have that feeling. I want to do that. So I'm really happy that I finally got to experience that joy. But once again, the hardest part is what to do next. You got the flat layer down, you got the base layer down. How are you going to add gradients? How are you going to add those shadows in it? And so that definitely took a little bit more time and just a little bit of sure dumb luck and practice. But yeah, and you get to see that here with the hair. I decided to not do the detailed style of coloring for the hair. I wanted to go a little bit simple, so I'm doing these curved upside down shaped U's, and it allows in a sense, the empty space that you're not filling to act as the highlighted section of the hair. Now, in order for this to work, and in order for this to look good, you have to know how your hair is going to be clumped up together in your illustration. So how do you do that when the base layer is so flat? The truth is, you just have to get the eye for it. You have to practice. Sometimes, especially for practicing it, try to sketch out those chunks first so you get an idea of where they're going to be placed. If not, and you're super comfortable, just do what I do and kind of wing it and figure it out as you go along. I've had a lot of practice with this, especially with my markers, but if you need more practice, there's no harm with just taking a day or even an hour of your life just practicing this method. I think it's really useful, and I think it's really helpful to know this because it's an easy way to paint hair, and it's really useful to learn from, if that makes sense. Because once you know how the hair is clumped up together, it makes painting hair a lot easier. So try your best, and if not, if it doesn't look good at the first time or the first try, don't worry and just keep trying again, okay? Now at this point, I'm filling in the vest. When I was designing the character, I wanted to make sure that the colors kind of breathed and allowed the color intensities to breathe against each other. So I designed it so that the hair was the strongest color of red and the vest is the strongest color of red, so that what could complement against it would be lighter versions of that red. It is your choice on how you want to design a character, but I like to allow the colors to breathe by being against things that help it complement each other. And usually when you do that, you actually use complementary colors. But for this case, because everything is red, you want to go by the intensity level. Oh, and just right now what you're seeing, you know how I was talking about, ooh, I love the base layer and how it's so smooth and clean and like you don't see any brush strokes. When I was coloring in these frills, these lighter colored frills, I got to see a lot of that in this process, and it was so satisfying. Alright, now we're at the part of the skin process. Now, for many of you who know me, you all know me as someone who really loves filling in the skin. I feel like when you add the skin layer or the skin tones, the artwork tends to make more sense. But because this is a new medium, I definitely did not feel as comfortable as I used to whenever I paint in skin tones. So actually right before this process, I paused and I took a break. I decided to start working on the skin tone the following day, and this video actually took me a couple of days to record because I took those breaks. I have a tendency when I start with a new medium, I either go really hard on it and draw and never stop and get really tired, or I take a step back and I allow myself to breathe a little bit. With this one, I allowed myself to breathe because I wanted to make sure that I was level-headed, I had rest, I had the mental capacity to really think thoroughly on how to use this medium. And so unlike the previous ones where I was kind of using a mid-tone red to fill in the other parts of the character, I knew I had to start really light for this one. So I had to move fast. Thankfully, because I'm using watercolor paper, once I place just a tint of red, like the lightest version of the red, as long as I grabbed some water, I could spread it out quickly as possible on the page. Now, once again, this dries, and once this dries, you can't change it. So while it was still wet, I had to move fast and apply those shaded areas much more smoothly. And in the end, it worked. And I'm really proud that I took that break. I'm very happy that I took that break so I can think more thoroughly on the process that I'm doing. And just like before and throughout this entire process, we're adding more ink to certain areas to add more shaded parts as well. So the key thing, if you're gonna learn anything from this video, is that if you're gonna use ink, start light and then add on. Don't start too strong unless that's really it. Start light by adding a little bit more water into the ink to change the levels of the color intensity, and then start adding onto it to provide a level of depth and shading. So usually in other videos, once I start adding the line art, it tends to feel like the video is almost over. But I actually had a lot of work to do even after this process. The process of adding the line art for this picture actually took a little bit of time because the grooves or the texture of the watercolor paper was not very easy for my Stabilo pen to latch onto. So instead of usually smoothly writing or drawing the line art, I had to kind of rub it into the paper a little bit. So it took a little bit of time. I also had to take a little bit more time because I actually had to draw in the eyes for once. And you didn't see it in this video, but I had to pull it up multiple times just to make sure it was pretty balanced. And I'm very glad that it was in the end balanced enough for at least to my liking. If you think it's kind of off, let me know in the comments below because I don't know. I think it's fine, but if you think it's slightly off, I don't mind if you share that with me. Maybe I can see it once you point it out. I'm always happy to learn. Just like that, we are almost done. I'm just adding extra lines for the shaded areas to add a little bit more separation of the frills on the top. And then I thought I was done until I realized, oh yeah, she doesn't have any eyes. So I drew in the eyes with the Stabilo pen, and that's where I hit a wall, and that's where I hit my first hurdle. I realized that Stabilo pens bleed with water. So even though I was almost done, I realized, oh no, the line art's gonna bleed. So I had to be very careful in this process. And you can tell somewhere in the little bit of the edge of the eyes that it's starting to bleed a bit. I cleaned that up later on, but rule of thumb, make sure you also test your line art or test your other your pens with the ink or whatever medium you're using. Granted, I should have realized this at the very beginning when I was sketching out the possible line art for this, but I didn't realize it. I wasn't paying attention to it, and I should have known better. Now at this point, realistically, I still felt like it was empty. I needed something more, so I chose a complementary color to red, which is green, to add a little bit of more, like a setting for the character to be at. And initially, I thought, you know what, I don't think this is working, but we'll keep going. And after a day or so, I looked back at it and I realized the green actually really does help. It allows the red to pop you out even more and provides a little bit more wholesome feel to the character. Now, after releasing it from its taped cage, I add a little bit more details with the Jelly Roll white pen, and I started to paint in some extra strands of red hair. And I think that's what finalized the character for me and finalized the design. Those extra strands of hair was the extra detail that I needed to feel really, really proud of this character and this final design. And I'm really happy with the way it turned out. As someone who never paints, as someone who rarely paints, this is the final product. Tell me in the comments below what you think. Did I do a good job with the Stabilo pens, inks, and water, and painting in general? And tell me in the comments below which color you'd like to see next. And that's that. Thank you guys so much for watching and supporting me in all of my social medias and whatnot. If you like what you see, if you want to support me even further as well, please consider helping me and supporting my work on Patreon. There you'll find a lot more sketches, exclusive artwork that only my patrons will ever see. And if you become a higher level patron on my Patreon, you will also get free artwork every month as well. So the support that you guys give me apart from the social media stuff will help me continue being an artist on my own time. So thank you guys once again so much for watching. Please share your comments below what you thought about this entire video, and I hope you all have a wonderful day. See you all next time. Bye!